Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. So we are in the Modern Women's Health Summit. We're about halfway through this incredible event where we are interviewing experts in the field of women's health and nutrition on topics that are related to women's health and in some areas that can be really difficult to navigate in our modern society. There are a lot of things kind of working against us that can make it difficult to be healthy in this modern world. And so we're trying to bring on some experts to get some advice in that area so that we can all be as healthy as possible. So this video is live. Please comment. Let us know that you're here. Say hello. I will be checking the comments throughout the video. So if you have a question or just want to say hi, I'll be able to see that. Please like this video, share it with your friends. And then I want to remind everyone we are doing the gold nugget list for this whole summit event. So there's a link in the description of this video. Just click the see more above us. There's a link right there. It'll ask if you want to connect with me on Messenger. Click yes. And so what will happen is after this video, I will send you the gold nugget lesson that if you get nothing else from this interview, you have to know this one thing. And I will send you a little action tip. So I don't even know what it's going to be yet. We will talk to Kristin and see what we're going to get a bunch of good information. So I just want to remind everyone about that so you can get the gold nugget. Okay, so we are talking with Kristin Cornett today. So Kristin is a nutritional therapy practitioner and a certified AIP coach. For anyone who's not familiar, AIP is autoimmune paleo or autoimmune protocol.
Autoimmune paleo or protocol, either one.
And she's focused on helping couples who are trying to conceive. So she's a co-creator and staff nutritionist for the online fertility platform Tiny Feet, which we'll get to talk a little bit more about later. And she also owns a private nutrition practice in Beaverton, Oregon. So welcome, Kristin.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I have a lot of people in my audience who are trying to conceive, so this is going to be very relevant for a lot of people watching.
Perfect. I'm excited to share what I know.
Yeah. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about kind of how you got started in the field of preconception?
Sure. So this is a very personal field of work for me. So there are two primary reasons that I decided to get into preconception. So the first is that I was a really sick kid. I grew up with a lot of chronic conditions. I had a lot of things that would be considered preventable. Research shows that a lot of what I suffered from, food allergies, digestive problems, trouble gaining weight, allergies, asthma, eczema, a lot of these things are preventable through preconception nutrition and lifestyle changes, as well as just knowing a little bit more about, how to feed and care for your children when they're young. So that's one thing. I wanted to kind of prevent other kids from having to grow up the way that I did. And the second primary reason that I got into this is because all of those health issues that I suffered from forever led to infertility for me. So when my husband and I started to get pregnant 4 years ago, we couldn't. And I tried for 18 months. And then I thought, I really think my health is the ultimate barrier here. Like the remaining health issues that I have are the things that are preventing me from being able to conceive. So I dove in and decided to figure out how to get to my root cause. And that ultimately led me to nutrition and functional medicine. And when it was time to open my own practice, I decided that, fertility and preconception care is where I wanted to be.
That's awesome. Yeah, so many of us get into nutrition because of the things that we're dealing with on our own. And you've really created an amazing product for this niche. So we'll get to talk a little bit more about that. And you kind of touched on the idea of preconception nutrition having benefits later on, but why is it so important to kind of start preparing for conception early before it even happens?
Yeah, so the research is out there, but we don't hear very much about this. And unfortunately, a lot of our doctors don't have time to be digging into all of this research that's out there now that tells us that our diet, our lifestyle, our environmental exposures, medical conditions that we may have, these things not only affect our ability to conceive, but they can also affect whether or not we suffer from pregnancy complications and whether or not our children are healthy, even as adults. Things like vitamin D status, for instance, that can affect a child from birth all the way to bone density in adulthood and whether or not their immune systems develop properly. So this isn't something that we hear a lot about in mainstream medicine, but the research is there to tell us that this is important. Preparing for conception is important.
Yeah. So how early should someone start? Like if someone's saying, I'm not going to have kids for a few years, when do they need to start really paying attention to this?
Hey, if you're thinking you want to have kids in a few years, it's never too early to start, with a good nutrient dense diet. Minimum, though, I would say I love to see women and men, but mostly women, starting about 6 months before they want to start trying to conceive. If they suffer maybe from chronic health issues or, for instance, an autoimmune condition or severe nutrient deficiencies that they've already investigated with their doctor, they may want to spend a little bit more time, building up those nutrient stores to prepare.
Sure, sure. So how about the men? Do they need to be on this health journey with their partners as well?
I mean, for supportive purposes, absolutely. But also, sperm cells take about 2 to 3 months to mature. And they're very vulnerable to poor nutrition and lifestyle and environmental exposures during that time. So I would say at least, healthy diet and lifestyle needs to be in place during that sperm maturation window. But as early as they can start is great as well. And then maybe just, taking that 6 month window with their partners and everybody does it together.
Sure. So just to make sure everyone caught that, what is the window of the amount of time it takes for a sperm to develop?
2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months. So that would mean if someone starts working on their health, then whatever they're developing at that moment, in 2 to 3 months later, you're going to have a really good quality sperm, theoretically.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And egg cells are about 3 to 4 months. So a little bit longer for egg cells for women, which is why, you kind of want to start a little bit earlier than that development window just to make sure that you have everything in place already.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So at the end of 6 months, you've got a good chance for some healthy eggs.
That's the idea.
Okay. So I know you worked on a really cool project that kind of helps couples assess their risk factors for fertility. How did you get involved in that project?
Good question. So I actually connected with a naturopathic doctor earlier this year. She ended up finding my website online, and we happened to be in the same city, basically doing the same thing. She's treating patients. I'm working with clients, both in the fertility sphere, and she approached me just to do a collaborative partnership, just to try to give a more well-rounded, kind of full spectrum service to fertility clients. One person working on the diet and lifestyle piece, one person working on the labs and stuff. And at the same time, her husband, who is like a technology and coding genius, they had come up with this idea to create this online platform that would give couples some individualized fertility advice rather than just searching through every website under the sun for this info and then maybe getting conflicting results and different information. So they ultimately brought me online to do kind of their blog posts, and then it turned into some of the research and writing for the actual content for the service. And now I'm a full-blown staff member. So kind of how we got started with it.
So cool. So what are some of the common risk factors that you see either from the assessment that you've created or just in your practice?
Good question. I think for me, obviously being the nutritionist, poor diet is probably at the top of the list. And that can encompass a lot of things. So too much sugar and processed food in the diet, not enough fruits and vegetables, poor nutrient intake, too much alcohol and caffeine. Those are some really common things. Lifestyle stress, working too much, not enough sleep, not enough exercise. And then from a medical standpoint, we see a lot of symptoms of things like low testosterone in men, maybe chronic conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, symptoms of hypothyroid in women. And then excess weight tends to come up a lot with both partners.
Sure. Yeah, that'll happen in today's society.
Definitely.
So do you see any common misconceptions that people have? You kind of touched on the idea, and I think it's a great idea to have this one place for people to go for information, because there is so much information throughout the internet, and some of it is from doctors, some is from research, some is just from people saying this was my personal experience. Hopefully this applies to you. Do you see a lot of people with misconceptions about what they need to do to prepare for pregnancy?
I mean, I think the biggest misconception that I see is that people don't need to prepare. That's kind of the attitude in our culture, is that, well, we're built to make babies. Reproduction is natural. We kind of take our ability to conceive and have healthy pregnancies and healthy babies. We sort of take that for granted. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception. The other misconception that I see a lot is that if they don't hear it from their doctor, it must not be important. And I think that's where there's that disconnect between all this new research that's coming out and, every individual doctor's ability and time to be able to go through that research and put that into practice in their own clinic. So, the idea that it only makes sense or it's only worth doing if your doctor tells you to do it, I think that is kind of a common misconception. A lot of women are told they don't need to start like taking a prenatal vitamin or they don't need to worry about their diet until they've already conceived. And at that point, you've kind of missed that critical early window.
Yeah.
Most women don't know they're pregnant until, a week to a few weeks after they've already conceived. And that's a really critical development window. So that early stage is really important for us to make sure that those changes are already in place. You're not waiting until you get a positive pregnancy test to start working on some of these things.
Yeah, that's huge because some of those really detrimental nutrition deficiencies like spina bifida and things like that, they develop in those very early weeks when a lot of women don't even know they're pregnant.
Definitely.
Wow. So we hear a lot about the importance of women preparing for pregnancy. Pretty much every blog post you will find on pregnancy and preconception is about women and all the things that we need to do. But the Tiny Feet website, and I got a chance to look at this and actually do an assessment myself, had the option to invite my husband so that he could do the assessment too. Why did you guys think that it was so important to include both couples in the assessment?
Well, I mean, the short answer is that it takes two to make a baby, and it takes two to make a healthy baby. That sperm is 50% of the genetic contribution to making an entire human being. So it's really important to make sure that that contribution is quality. And surprisingly, many men might be surprised to learn how much scientific research there is on sperm health and sperm quality, how things like nutrients, diet, lifestyle exposures are all heavily researched in terms of how they affect male fertility. And that sperm quality can have a lasting impact on a child's health just as much as the in utero environment for a baby when a woman's already pregnant. So we wanted to make sure that both partners were kind of taking equal responsibility for, the importance of that preparation period and that they could be on the baby journey together.
Yes, that's such a great thing to end on because it really is. It's, you building a family and it's going to be both of you raising this child. And it's a good reminder that the genetics do play a part in that child's life well after, they've grown up and turned into fully functioning adults.
Right.
So your website talks about the idea of having a super baby. Yes. What does that mean and where did that idea come from?
So that term came from a book that our founders, Matthew and Haley, actually read during their preconception journey. I can't recall the name of the book. It was something like Conceiving Naturally Over 30. Okay. But basically the idea of a super baby is that baby that everybody dreams of when they start thinking about starting their family. Their baby's smart and meets their milestones on time and doesn't suffer from any of these chronic childhood conditions that we're seeing on the rise, neurodevelopmental disorders, autism, asthma, eczema, food allergies, all of these things that research tells us are preventable.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, because you want to have a baby, but you want that baby to be healthy as much as possible. So how did you go about prioritizing the risk factors in preconception? Because that was a really cool feature of the results, even that I got, was the priorities of where I needed to focus my attention.
Yeah, we kind of had to do that since we do provide what we call a fertility score in the product. In order to do that, you can't necessarily consider a major medical condition the same as not eating enough healthy fats in your diet. I mean, both of those things are important, but in terms of what somebody needs to immediately focus on, obviously that medical condition should carry a little bit more weight. So we did that in two ways. So the first was how much scientific research is there on that subject that is specific to fertility and pregnancy. So the more research we found, the more the research outcomes supported a major focus for that particular risk factor, the higher we prioritized it. And then some of these things are just, gems from our own clinical practice, deciding how important it is based on the clients and patients that we've seen.
Sure, that makes sense. Was that difficult to prioritize that part?
It was, and it has not been consistent since the very beginning. We've gone back through this list several times. tested out the product several times, kind of made up little avatars of people. So go in and answer the questions as if you were this person or as if you were this person, just to kind of see how all of that looks and plays out. So, I mean, it's an evolving process, and obviously new research is coming out all the time. So we will make changes to those priorities based on new research that we read, new information that we glean from our own clinical practice. But it is a little subjective, but it gives you a starting point for how to focus.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic starting point. I mean, we were talking about this before we came on the live video, but we are both nutritionists and we're in this lifestyle, but there's still plenty of things that, I'm in the car breathing in car exhaust, and there's an exposure there, and there's things that we have control over and things we don't.
Right.
One of the running themes in this whole summit has been the idea of kind of bio-individuality, that every person is unique. There is no one size fits all recommendation that's going to work for you and your friend equally. And I thought that you guys did a really great job of addressing that in this assessment and in this questionnaire, is that, even though it's an AI system, it's a computer algorithm, you're still getting these really specific recommendations based on what is going on for you, which is so powerful. So kudos on that.
Thank you. It was definitely a labor of love, for sure. It took a lot of time and energy and effort to try to deliver something that would have that individualized feeling for people. Because it's really important to me to be a part of something that has that bio-individual element, because I'm an NTP, and that's kind of the lens that I view everything through.
And really, that's the way that these people are going to get the best results, is when they find out what they really need to be prioritizing, as opposed to, their next door neighbor might have something completely opposite going on in their own health. So,
and I think the danger of just going through other people's blog posts, for instance. Blogs are such a great place to get information. I mean, I've learned a ton in my health journey before and after becoming an NTP from reading blog posts, but it can be a little difficult to get the same bio-individual information for you by reading somebody else's experience. I mean, it can be a great starting point, but it's not always, the right approach for each individual person.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think some of the recommendations that you gave on Tiny Feet were about supplements. And I think that's an area that's really great to get some bio-individual feedback and see what your body really needs support in. Instead of just kind of going to a website and saying, well, this person took these 18 different supplements, I'll take these 18 different supplements and hope, cross my fingers and hope they work.
Right.
So kind of in that vein of bio-individuality, people are really excited about DNA testing these days. And this is an area that I would really like to learn more about. That's kind of my plan going forward. Do you find that it's important to consider the DNA testing in preconception, or is that kind of putting the cart before the horse in a lot of cases?
That's a really good question. So I'm a big fan of genetic testing, partly because of my own experience. But I don't think it's necessary for everybody. I think that most people are able to get pregnant and have a perfectly healthy child just by implementing, general helpful diet, lifestyle, supplements, those types of interventions. I think most people can be successful without doing any genetic testing. However, I do think it can be really valuable to kind of provide some additional information, a little bit more incentive for people to kind of stick to this diet and lifestyle if they know that they're supporting a particular genetic predisposition. So I also think it's important if there are chronic conditions, like somebody's having difficulty investigating a chronic health condition. This is where my personal experience kind of comes in. I have a really interesting set of genetic SNPs or, variations that have affected my health in ways that I'm not sure I would have been able to figure out had I not gone and done my 23andMe and kind of dug into some of these. So for instance, I don't know if a lot of people will know what these are, but MTHFR is pretty common. I am a proud owner of a homozygous mutation in MTHFR. I have a homozygous mutation in a gene called PEMT, which affects liver function and cell membrane stability, and just several others that were all kind of working together against me. And when I figured that out and started targeting some of my supplementation protocol and my nutrition toward those genetics, I started to see some really big results in my health and in my fertility journey as well. So I think it can be really important for some people. I think it can be a game changer for some people, but I don't think it's necessary for everybody.
Sure, sure. I'm curious, at what point do you usually say, like, okay, it's time to do some of the DNA testing? Is there
Yeah.
a certain type of person that benefits from, or is it just like kind of when you've stalled out with everything else?
Couple of things. So chronic illness coupled with, unexplained infertility. If there's not like a specific determination of, yes, this condition is causing infertility, maybe in the case of like hypothyroid, but if there's just some chronic symptoms going on along with unexplained infertility, we can't figure out from the labs what's going on with you, I think genetic testing can be a great place to go. I also think in cases of recurrent loss, multiple miscarriages, and knowing whether or not, for instance, you have an MTHFR mutation or another mutation that affects that methylation cycle, that early development stage of a baby, can be really helpful for some couples in, targeting their supplementation and working through some diet and lifestyle considerations. So yeah, those are kind of my two big ones: chronic illness and unexplained infertility or recurrent loss.
Sure, that makes sense. So just for everyone watching, how would you define chronic illness in that case? Are we talking like a diagnosed issue like diabetes, or are you talking just chronic, like I've had this thing my whole life and it's not going away, kind of chronic?
Yeah, I don't think that everybody thinks of things like really terrible seasonal allergies, for instance, as a chronic illness, but it is. I mean, that is chronic immune system dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
Your immune system controls all of those allergy symptoms. That's what is happening. So, I mean, even something as, quote, small as that can be considered chronic illness, just as something like asthma or eczema would be considered chronic illness, as well as these big diagnosed conditions like PCOS, endometriosis, hypothyroid, diabetes, insulin resistance, the metabolic things too. So chronic illness is a broad category. I get that that's kind of like, not really specific for people, but, pretty much any chronic health symptom that is affecting your quality of life or your ability to get through your day, that falls under the category of chronic illness, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm glad that you brought up seasonal allergies, because that's definitely in the category that people just assume this is just a thing that I have and most other people have it. So what's the big deal? But you're right. It's a reflection of what's going on in your immune system. And if that's been going on your whole life, there's probably something deeper happening.
Yep. And I would put mental health conditions under that umbrella as well. I mean,
Sure.
Depression and anxiety are such common conditions. We think of those as we think of the brain as like separate from the rest of the body,
Mm-hmm.
but we know as, nutritional therapists that it's not separate. That's just one more thing that's being affected by the rest of the physiology of your body.
Yeah, absolutely. And digestion, any kind of digestive issues that have been going on for a long time, that's always a big red flag for me. But so many people, and this was, me growing up, I just assumed it was normal. I didn't think there was anything wrong with, not having a bowel movement for a few days or a week.
Well, how would you know, right? Like we don't talk about our poop. We don't talk about that as like a health indicator. We laugh about it when we're 12 years old, and then we just never talk about it again.
We still laugh about it when we're 30 years old, but it's okay.
It's like dinner table conversation in my family now. So
good. I would join that conversation. Okay, so for everyone watching, tell us again the name of your company and the website. So if people, and then kind of walk us through how that assessment works so that people know what's going to happen when they get to the website.
Sure. So the company is called Tiny Feet, and the website is tinyfeet.co. It's not .com, it's just .co. And you can click on the sign up in the upper right-hand corner, and that will bring you to the user interface where you will sign up and create an account, create a preconception plan, and then it will take you to the questionnaire. So the questionnaire is split up into 4 major categories. So we have medical questions, nutrition questions, lifestyle questions, and environmental exposure questions. So once you get through that questionnaire, it probably takes about 15 minutes to complete.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, we recommend doing it at home just because, if you take vitamins or, you're looking at the labels on your personal care products, we ask some ingredient type questions about the things that you use around the house and on your body. So it's better to do it at home if you can. And once you get through the questionnaire, you'll be asked to unlock your plan so you can see your results. It's $59.99. We provide you a ton of information for just that price. So what you will see on your results is a fertility score. So this is kind of your low, medium, high risk for fertility. And we explain on the site what low, medium, and high means, and what you might need to do to work on your score. And we provide a list of risk factors. So these are things that apply to you based on your unique questionnaire, and then a list of recommendations and action items to help you address those risk factors. So it's pretty well organized in the site. You should be able to see it. We are adding some features to give a little bit more explanation for people so that they can see exactly kind of what those things mean and how to prioritize them beyond just seeing the low, medium, high scores.
Sure. I did like on your website that you had a really good explanation for each thing that was recommended. So it wasn't just, you know, you make sure you have X amount of whatever vitamin in your prenatal. It also included an explanation of like what that vitamin does, why it's important. So you've got, you kind of need that little extra motivation to go research some new prenatals and pick one up at the store. So that's a really great little feature.
Yeah, we wanted to be conscious of all different types of users. So some people are going to go in, take the questionnaire, and they don't care about all the research. They just want to tell me what to do. And that's kind of where those action items come in really handy. You don't have to read all of the science and the what and the why and the scientific references. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. But for people who want a little bit more of that education and need more justification for those recommendations, we provide that too. So we're kind of trying to accommodate everybody's learning style.
Yeah. Well, and so many people, if you are dealing with infertility, you can almost like get a doctorate in the amount of research that you do once this subject has come up for you, because you're so motivated to fix this issue. And so like the amount of books that I read and articles was insane. And that was even before I did my nutrition training. And then I went on to become a nutritional therapist. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to be taking that assessment that are going to just, you know, really geek out on all of the citations and the studies that were referenced.
There are hundreds and hundreds of hours of research and writing that went into this.
I'm sure.
It was very thoroughly done.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. So for anyone who missed the beginning, I just want to remind you, there's a link in the description for the video for you to sign up for the Gold Nugget list for this entire summit. You basically connect with me on Messenger, and then after each interview, I will send you a little Gold Nugget lesson from the interview, whatever kind of stood out as the most important thing to know, and then a little action step for you to use that information. So click on that. You'll get them for all of the interviews in the summit. And then, Kristin, before I let you go, since Halloween is coming up, this is all about sugar and candy and the things that we try and help our clients not be beholden to in their lives anymore. Do you have a little tip that you can share with everyone to have a healthier Halloween this year?
Sure, I do. Well, I'll just start by saying I'm really lame around Halloween. My husband and I, we used to hand out candy when I worked in corporate finance, and I had just started my nutrition training. You know, for that first year or so, like we still handed out candy. And, you know, I totally am fine. You know, if people want to hand out candy, just don't eat any of it yourself. What I used to do is I used to purchase like just enough that I thought I would hand out that day. And if I had any left over, I would just take it to work the next day. You know, adults are responsible for what they eat a little more than kids. So I didn't feel quite as bad, you know, leaving that in the break room for people to grab. But, you know, for us now on Halloween, we kind of make it like a little date night, a little indoor date night for us. We kind of shut off all the lights. If we carve pumpkins, we'll just put them in the garage so we don't look like we're, you know, celebrating Halloween. People skip our house, and then we just have dinner and put on Netflix and kind of cozy up for the evening. I know a lot of people attend Halloween parties and stuff. So I would just say if you're planning to indulge at a party, just keep it really reasonable. You know, don't beat yourself up if you have a treat, but don't gorge on an entire plate of cupcakes, for instance. I do have some recipes that will be going up on Instagram in the next couple of weeks for kind of like healthier sweet treats that don't provide that punch of like refined sugar. So if anybody's interested, you can follow us on Instagram at tinyfeet.co and enjoy those recipes.
Awesome. I will link to Tiny Feet, to your website, and to your Instagram in this post so that people can get those recipes. I'm doing a Halloween party this year, and so I'm like hoarding all of the healthy treat recipes that I can possibly find so that I can still have some good treats, but not, you know, destroy all of my nutrition friends that are going to be coming to the party.
Good plan.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. So we are in the middle of the Modern Women's Health Summit. Join us again tomorrow. Go to Parsley and Pumpkins Nutrition and then click my events tab, and you can see the whole schedule of everyone that we are interviewing. And again, I will link to Kristin's, all of her contact information, as well as the Tiny Feet website in the description of this video afterwards. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.